All right, welcome back to Lost for Words with Lori. It is Monday, February 27th. Technically, it's just about the end of the month, and then March will be upon us come Wednesday. I hope everybody had a good month. It is the shortest month of the year, February only having 28 days, and we're not in a leap year, so we don't get that extra day. So I hope everyone is doing well. I did a podcast last week and gave everybody a February update on what's been going on in my first world and as far as my house and, trying to move and do all the things that I need to do to take care of, my peace and happiness, right? There's always going to be some speed bumps and roadblocks in your things that you're trying to do and accomplish. So I am just trusting the process. I'm not panicking. I'm taking my sweet ass time and just connecting the dots and following along, and we'll see what we will see, and just keep moving along. So I've had a good weekend. I worked yesterday. I had a really wonderful day at work. I had attempted to post my update or my rant or my drivel, whatever you want to call it, as I was driving home from work yesterday. It was gorgeous out and the sun was shining, and I had some errands to run, but I chose to delete that because I wasn't happy with the final result. And I guess what it came down to is when I listened back and I watched the video, I was angry, and I come across as being abrasive, I guess, sometimes when I'm angry. And I know that... I know what happens, especially, on a podcast, especially my podcast, is that when I post things that are going on in Talk Successful World or in my virtual world, people make assumptions, or they get in their feels, or they draw conclusions without communicating that I'm talking about them. And just like I've always said previously, if the fucking shoe fits, motherfucker, lace that bitch up and wear it. I find that people... get offended or take to heart things when they're triggered by people pointing out behaviors that they probably are participating in themselves. Okay, that's fair, but if you're not being a douchebag, then you really have nothing to worry about. If you're not getting triggered or offended by listening to somebody else's opinion or viewpoint of what's going on around them, then you have nothing to worry about. If your conscience is clean, if you're authentic, if you're not being misguided or, acting a fool or being a douchebag, then you really don't have to worry about what other people are saying or discussing or observing on social media. And, so 9 months ago, I posted a podcast, and I'll link that in the description for anybody who cares to even go backward, because, I've been doing this for a good year or more, and basically expressing my observations and about how social media and Talk Successful World affects me in my first world and in just in my virtual world in general. But I did a podcast about a public service announcement about it's not fucking real. The internet is not fucking real. And I can't reiterate that and have it hit home any harder today than I did even 9 months ago. Because, I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up with the internet. I was there in its inception. I've been around since it started, and I've watched it evolve, and I've watched it become kind of I don't know. It's kind of the downfall of society in reality. I mean, people using it for escape, and it becomes so much part of their first world that the line is blurred between what's real and what's not real. And the internet's not real life. I mean, people have got to stop using the internet as an excuse, as a fantasy world to escape the responsibilities of the first world. And I get it. When my daughter was an infant, the internet was coming out, and I was a stay-at-home mom. I was taking care of a little child, and it was a great place to connect with people, to find fellowship, to talk to people, and find commonalities and discuss. For me, it was music, and make friends, and it was really cool. But it didn't give me the right, or it wasn't an excuse to escape the responsibilities of my first world, because I was obsessed with or needed to spend all of my time on the internet. And it's easy to use the internet to escape the real world, and I get that. I mean, it's a great distraction. It's entertainment. It's all of the things that TV and movies used to be before we had access to the entire world with the touch of a button on our phones all the time, or our computers. But there's so many people that have nothing better to do than spend 24/7 on the internet, because of their own situations, and they become part of it. They become part of that, toxic machine, because they're damaged, they're broken, they have nothing good going on in their first world. And they use it as a place, to escape that. And so, I mean, I get it. They found a place where they can create or be anything that they want to be. It's just unfortunate that some people will just create this fake persona, or this image of themselves that they're this, that, or the other thing, or gather sympathy and get attention, or sometimes money, by investing all of their time and energy into the virtual world. And I mean, they're great platforms. There are good people on good platforms. There are good content creators. There are good entertainers. There are good communities, for like-minded people who share ideas. They connect. They find fellowship. They cook together. They laugh together. And in my case, we learn and cry together. We talk about subjects that are not happy-go-lucky, and we talk about toxic narcissism, and we talk about people who are healing from bad emotional trauma and relationships and other things. But there are also trolls and the stupid that exists in these platforms and across all the internet communities. And when it's good and it's positive, it's inclusive and it's supportive, and it makes us feel good and empowers us to make good choices in our first world. But when it's toxic, it's agenda-based and political and divisive, and creates drama and hatred and stress, really, And when I say that the internet is fake, I don't mean it's fake, like, it's a movie, it's a CGI, Toy Story or anything. I mean, there are parts of the internet that are real. We do meet people. And in my case, I've met real people in real life, over the course of two plus decades, where, I even met, my ex-husband. I met him through, the virtual world, and we got to know each other, dated, and eventually became a real life, husband and wife, and had a family, and lived together for 20, almost 20 years. We were together with our life, navigating that path. And it was wonderful. It was a wonderful way to meet, get to know the in-depths of people, and to experience life, and find companionship, and to find friendship. And it was a great tool to connect, with all sorts of other people, who had like-minded, similarities. But it's subjective. The internet is still a matter of opinion. I mean, when we started back in the AOL days in our music chat, it was opinions about which bands were better, and there was toxicity there too. But it's still a matter of opinion, just like mainstream media and news. Everything has an agenda, and it's everybody's individual responsibility to navigate that. It's still my responsibility, whether it's music or cooking or true crime or anything, to do the research for myself, to find facts, to question everything, to not believe everything that people tell me, and to educate myself, and learn those lessons to grow. Not to get entrenched or become the very toxic failure that society is in a virtual world, because I'm escaping the responsibilities of my first world. I mean, the reality is that in social media, there are no leaders. And the grand illusion of these so-called influencers, it's nothing more than a bunch of people, damaged, broken, low self-esteem shit starters that are seeking validation and spewing opinions. I mean, it's their opinions. It's not facts. It's based on whatever their agenda is, whatever it is that they're pushing, whatever agenda they have. And they get to instill their own thoughts, feelings, moralities into that, for good, for bad, or for different. But if you're a free-thinking, strong-willed, self-aware person, then you can spot people's agendas. The red flags are there. You can tell a lot about people, even just in 5 minutes of an intro on their channel or their platform of what they're about. And if it makes you feel good or comfortable, you'll recognize that. I mean, if you're self-aware, I've been on a specific platform for almost 2 years, and here's what I've learned. I've learned it's just like high school. It's clicks and who's at the cool kids table and what's the flavor of the month, who's the influencer of the month, who's the drama of the month. And the people there are broken, most of them. I mean, there's a good majority of people who aren't, but are failures in their first world, and they're looking for an escape. But I found so many broken failures. I've so many weak-minded people who are afraid to think for themselves and just want to go along with the crowd, much like people did in high school. They wanted to be a part of something bigger. And I'm not saying that that's always bad, but it's bad when you are willing to throw out your own moral upbringings or your own values or your own honor because you feel like you've got to fit in or be part of the crew. And people being abused, manipulated by scorekeepers and gatekeepers and these grifters who just want money, and these catfishers who are looking to just, literally hurt people. And if you have zero boundaries, you fail. Just like in real life. I mean, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And these people will come looking for a distraction and entertainment, and then get twisted into following along by these so-called leaders and influencers because, it feels good to be included. And then they get stuck. They get stuck in that social media rut because their first world is unsatisfying. It's unrealistic. It's boring. It's damaged. It's broken. And if you don't have self-awareness and boundaries, and you're transparent, then you become a pawn in other people's stupid game on the interwebs and on the social media. And there are a lot of people who are totally okay and complacent, and compromise everything that they never wanted to become to be part of that. And if you're one of those shit starters or narcissists who wants to be Jim Jones and have everybody drink your Kool-Aid, then you use social media to prey on others who aren't strong, who are broken and damaged. And I find that everywhere. I find it in all platforms, in all communities, that there's always one person who thinks that they're the head honcho or the head influencer, or their shit don't stink, or they're better than everyone else. And then they use that as a tool to manipulate and gaslight and no accountability, right? There's no consequences on the social medias. Everybody gets to be a tough guy hiding behind a screen and a keyboard, spewing shit because nobody's going to come punch you in your fucking mouth when you're disrespectful. And it's pathetic. And then you see people who really are just looking to support and find friends and look for distractions because, like me, their first world is tough enough. Responsibilities are hard. Everybody's struggling with their own personal things, whether it's trauma or work or financial or children or family or relationships. And they come to the internet with this grandiose idea that it's going to solve all of their problems, when they fail to recognize that it's fake. It's not real. It's just like watching a movie or binge watching a series on Netflix. You get involved in and emotionally invested in that, but at the end of the day, it's not real. And the internet is the same thing. At the end of the day, if it isn't paying your bills and it isn't supporting you, it's not real. It's a virtual. It's fake. It's not reality. It's unrealistic to think that everybody that you've connected with or you're acquainted with on social media is truly your real friend, and that they don't have a hidden agenda, and that they aren't going to be transparent and authentic. And that includes me. I could be just as full of shit here as any of the rest of the people that are trying to take advantage and grift and manipulate and abuse people on social media and on the internet. However, I'm not. I can claim that and scream it from the rooftops. And if you don't like me, that's your choice. But in my first world, that's where it matters, is the real people that I've connected with, the real people that I have found real relationships with, whether I met them on social media or not. And when you're face to face with people, then their true colors come out and you recognize the red flags, you recognize the good things, you recognize the potential. But unfortunately, most people are in society today are living in fight or flight, and they don't have tools and skills and coping mechanisms to come to terms with who they really are, or come to terms with their past, or recover from the things that hold them back. And they continue to swim in the fishbowl of negativity and toxicity because they don't know any better, or because it's safe, and because there are no consequences. And you don't have to be accountable for your own shit when you're busy, escaping responsibility on the internet. And people have to be cognizant of what's real and what's fake. And nobody wants to do that. It's like living in a movie. And they think that they're the director, and technically they're nothing. They're just pawns and actors, letting other people dictate to them what they're supposed to think, feel, and do. And I have a serious fundamental problem with that. I'm my own human. I'm my own free-thinking person. And in my country, I have a fundamental right to freedom of speech, to say what I want. But my own morality says that just because I have a right to doesn't mean that I have to. And I'm aware of the things that I say and how they affect people. And I'm open to having feedback and discussion and criticism for those things. Most people don't believe that, or they don't think that, or they're not aware or even conscious of that when they jump into a social media platform thinking, oh, it's all going to be this way or that way, and they don't recognize that it's not always what it seems. And it's just like a movie. It's just like a fantasy. It's like reading a book. You get to imagine and create what you think it's supposed to be like, but be realistic about it. The realistic reality is that the only things that you have control over are you and yourself in your first world. And that the virtual world isn't real. It's not what it seems. And in some cases, it could be. But you have to be diligent about recognizing and knowing what's, by doing your own research, by being your own free-thinking adult and not following along with the crowd. And most people aren't willing to do that because they don't want to be left alone, like they are in their first world, alone. Because let's face it, the people who spend 24/7 on social media, it's because they don't have a first world that they're content with, that they're proud of, that they are succeeding in, and they're looking for validation. They're looking for something else. And I mean, if you're running a business or you're, sharing whatever, that's fine. But again, it goes back to just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there are a lot of people who do use social media for good, to connect, to help people, to sell the things that they create. But there are also a lot of people who use it as a place to go terrorize other people, to make themselves feel better. And that's the sociopath, that's the narcissist, that's the toxic, damaged, broken people who are still continuously looking to damage, to hurt. And then there's the victims of that. There are people who don't know any better. There are people who got sucked into that thinking, oh, fame, fortune, and glory, or, I'm going to get rich on the internet, or I'm going to make friends, or I'm going to be, the internet's going to make me confident. It's going to make me strong. It's going to make me money. It's going to make this fantasy life come true with no hard work and with no effort. And they think it's, oh, I'm here and I'm present and therefore I'm entitled to all of these things. When the reality is you're not entitled to shit. And nothing in life is free. And just like a movie, it's a fantasy land. And if you think that being present on a social media platform is going to automatically grant you entitlement, because you're trying to escape from all of the things that hurt you or your failure in your first world, you're deluding yourself and you're on a path of self-destruction. And that's the reality. That's the stark, hard truth that most people who are causing or living in or dealing with drama on the social medias are faced with. And it's disappointing, especially when people have this unrealistic expectation that the internet's going to change their entire world. And that's not the case. And I speak from experience. I've tried to use my own life experience as somebody who's been around since the day that social media started, and AOL dial-up and chat rooms, and seeing the bullying that happened back then, and then seeing influencers and seeing MySpace and Facebook and all the other platforms come up, and how you can use that for good, or you can suffer in it and swim in toxicity and drama. I've been there. I've tried to use my own experiences to get people to understand that you have choices. You have to be cognizant of what's real and what's fake. You have to be genuine and authentic. You have to say no and establish solid boundaries just like you would in your first world. I mean, it's not a replacement for first world life, responsibilities, and hard work. But a lot of people don't believe that. They think it's just a magical place where you can escape from all of the first world things, and that you're automatically going to become liked, you're automatically going to be accepted, that nobody's going to criticize you or hold you accountable for your behavior. And then when you're met with the reality of you are still going to have to be truthful and honest and authentic, or that, if you're trying to be a fake person, eventually somebody's going to see through that. Especially those of us who have boundaries, those of us who are transparent and authentic. And we're going to call you out on your bullshit. And then it's people basically resorting back and regressing to the high school mentality of, playground tactics and juice box throwing and passive aggressive and negative, he said, she said drama, because they have to protect the lie instead of just being who you are and being authentic and honest everywhere. And that's, like I said, if that's your agenda and that's what you choose to do, you want to create a fake, persona on social media for entertainment or for whatever your agenda is, that's wonderful. But when it crosses my boundaries and it basically makes me feel like somebody's trying to use, abuse, grift, take money, use whatever it is, and it spills over into my first world, I have a choice to shut it off. There's a power button, man, and take a walk outside and be grateful and thankful that I'm alive and that life is a gift. And if through all of the trauma and the things that I've been through personally in my first world for the almost 50 years I've been on this planet, if there's one thing that I can't really just nail home hard enough, is that life is precious and it's short, and it can be taken away from you when you don't have any choices. It's a circumstance, and it can be devastating. So to waste it proliferating in negativity and drama and toxicity and self-sabotage, that's your choice, and you can choose that. But expecting that the world owes you something different just because you're here is unrealistic, and it's sad. And I feel sorry for anybody who continues to sit and swim in toxic water when there's a whole world out there that can be wonderful if you take the time to really do a deep dive into who you are, what's important to you, what your goals are, and then work hard to make those things happen without depending on other people to do the hard work for you. Because, before the day and age of social media and the internet, and your grandparents and in some of your cases, your parents, and I can tell you that hard work pays off. And lazy, complacency, and pity, and wallowing in feeling sorry for yourself gets you nothing. And if there was no internet, you have to ask yourself, if the internet and social media didn't exist, what would you be doing? What else would you be doing to be successful in your first world, to make yourself feel good, to have good, solid, healthy relationships with the people around you, to work or to grow a garden or have pets or whatever it is, that you find that makes your soul and your heart happy? And to be fair, the honest consensus is that 90% of the people that I come in contact with on the internet, without social media, they would be nothing. And they would be alone, and they would be miserable. And I fear for that. I fear for a society that has been shaped and created that way. And it's our responsibility as parents. It was my responsibility to teach my child a different path and to get her to be very aware that why social media is a good thing, it's not everything, and that it doesn't give you an excuse to skirt the responsibility of your first world, to be a productive member of society, to work a job, to pay taxes, or if you can't do those things, to help support your community, to volunteer your time, to be a good neighbor, to be a good parent, child, husband, wife, friend, whatever that looks like for you. And I'm grateful that my young one and many other people that I know, their young ones, are learning the lessons of real first world contact, real first world resolution for conflicts, real relationships. And they're learning about themselves in the process, and what that looks like. And social media is dangerous because mentally ill people and people who are damaged and broken think that they can escape from that instead of being accountable and taking care of it in their first world. And then they spew toxicity all over the social media and cause problems, not just for everyone else, but also for themselves, because it's self-sabotaging and they're not filling the void that they thought they were going to fill by being there. And I'm sad. I feel sad for those people, and I pity those people because, honestly, I've experienced a lot in the last 2 years that have been life-changing. But I'm not sitting around feeling like hopeless or like the world is a dark place. I'm looking at it from a different perspective of, I've got obstacles and there's going to be roadblocks, but I can work hard. I can be authentic. I can reach out and get resources to learn, grow, evolve, change, and be better. And it's not, I don't have to sit and have that cloud of doom and dread over my head that this all there is? Is this all that life has to offer and it sucks? No, I'm going to go out in my world, make my way, and do the best that I can because I want to be happy. I want to find joy. I want to be successful in my first world. And I'm finding that there are other people who are using the social media platforms for good, just like I am, or who are looking for fellowship and to reach out to people who have experienced similar things and want to, share that experience so hopefully they can help other people. And I'm finding great, wonderful interactions with those people. But at the end of the day, when I'm needing time for me and I need to address and be responsible for my first world and the things that are going on in it, I shut off the goddamn button and I disconnect. And I go back out into the first real world and I inhale the oxygen that's outside, and be grateful and thankful for life because it's short, sweet, and precious. And it makes me sad there are so many who just probably are so invested in being victimized and think that they're entitled to having things without working hard, that they're going to basically self-sabotage the rest of their existence on this planet. And it makes me sad because I've met some great people who have so much potential and who are good humans and have been victimized their whole lives and never had the opportunities to understand, learn, grow, and realize that it wasn't their fault. A lot of people who are victims of being abused as children or got into abusive relationships. And then they stagnate in that because it damages them and they don't know how to fix it. They don't know how to get better. They don't care to get better, or they insist that this is the only way. And then they just continue to live in their own toxic, self-destructive cycles. And again, to me, it's a choice. Everything is a choice. And you get to make choices, and you get to be accountable and suffer the consequences, or in my case, reap the benefits of the choices that you make. And if that means that I have to unplug or completely eliminate social media from my world permanently, then so be it. But I know that in my first world, I will succeed, and I will find, and I have made good, positive contributions to the people around me. Whether they're real or fake. And the fake people, good on them. I mean, if that's the choice that you make, you get to live with that choice. You get to lace that bitch up and wear it. You get to flaunt your fancy however you see fit. But not everybody's going to like what you have to offer. Not everybody is going to agree with your opinions. And not everybody is going to kiss your ass, placate, or give you the validation that you do not have in yourself. And that's the stark reality. That's the real talk. That's the truth. And you can, again, I've been here on a specific platform for 2 years, and the same people who were doing the same behavior back when we started are still swimming in their own toxic fishbowl. And that's a choice. You get to choose that. But eventually it will choke you and it will kill you. It'll kill your spirit, your heart, your soul, and everything about you. And it makes you bitter, angry, and pathetic. And that's, again, it's a choice. You get to choose that. I choose me. I choose positivity. I choose growth, evolution, learning, love, light, happiness. And hopefully that is very apparent in everything that I do, whether it's virtually or in my first world. And I'm able to navigate the speed bumps and the barriers and the things that come up much easier than people who choose to ignore their responsibilities. But I'm sorry this was so long-winded, but just something to think about. Don't forget to check out the old 9-month-old podcast that I did on it being fake and it's not real, my public service announcement. Shameless, selfless plug. I'm so grateful and appreciative of everybody who sticks by me through all of this, who I've, genuinely found really good people, and learned so much from so many, good, bad, and indifferent. There are a lot of lessons and there are a lot of blessings. And I'm grateful for the people who have shined light into my world, especially in the virtual world, who I would not have had the opportunity to meet if it weren't for social media. But I'm using it for a tool for goodness, and using it as a supplemental tool, much like you would take a vitamin for your health, rather than, using it as a toxic drug, like people who would drink excessively and pass out and be damaging to themselves. So thank you. I appreciate you. I love you all. I hope you have a great week. I'm going to be kind of absent because it is birthday week, and I'm super excited. I'll be going out into the real first world and being treated to dinner and celebrations and spending time with people who are wonderful and amazing. And I hope you all get that opportunity soon. Until next time, guys, wash your fucking hands. Be a good human. Love y'all.